Alrighty. Once again, of course, the video is gonna have a little bit of delay. Um, and that's just because it is what it is. But I want to try to get to the live stream. I'm not gonna be on here very long, um, because I'm tired. So I'm not gonna be on very long. So, and I know a lot of times when the people start tuning in, they see the videos. I'm running a little bit late today, but anyhow, the subject that I want to talk about is I saw a couple of videos on large consoles. So that's going to be the bulk of, like, for me, and that is really dependent on the room. You know, if you got room, uh, and if you want to deal with, a large console. Some people have never dealt one, so they don't have a desire. They probably seen them magazines, or maybe they've been to a recording studio and they probably seen the large consoles. But a lot of times people they don't want to deal with one. They just like, well, I've seen them, but I don't necessarily want one. For me, I started on consoles. I still have consoles, so I prefer to work that way. I like the workflow of a console better than without one. But it's no different than if you have a person that likes a Ford Mustang GT versus someone who likes a Hellcat versus someone who likes a Chevy Camaro. They're different cars. All three of them are fast. They're different, but they all pretty much get the same concept, right? Oh wow, we got Wild Child Productions. Welcome DL, George G's. What's going on, everybody? As everyone starts tuning in, Maddie too, DL. Uh, uh, Welcome. He said that Alan, he looks cool. Appreciate it. Wild Child says I have a large digital console, which to me, when it comes to consoles, because I do have some digital consoles as well. I like working with faders. I actually like working with buttons. I think this is why some people actually get even doll controllers, because they're actual buttons. Some people actually like working with just the keyboard, the mouse, and using some people it's like working like like anything else to do work. I can literally work in a computer. Some people really love working that way. For me, I like working on a console. I just like the look of a console. I like the feel of it, how it sounds, the whole 9 yards. That's me. And the reason why I'm talking about consoles today, the reason why I like talking about consoles is now it depends on someone's budget. Like, once again, it depends on if you got the room and you're willing to deal with the maintenance headaches of it. But overall, the console was the talking piece of any recording studio 20, 30, 40 years ago. Was the console. It really wasn't really about the outboard gear. It really wasn't about a whole lot of anything else when it came to the recording studio, because most recording studios pretty much had the same ubiquitous outboard gear. You would have your LA2As, your 1176s, your whatever, the stressors or whatever, just the same, Pool Tech. So that no one really like, well, yeah, I got one of those too. It was not a talking piece, but you would have some studios that would have an API console in it as their main console. Some studios would have a Trident. Some studios would have a Neve. Some studios would have an SSL. Some studios would have a Helios. Some would have a Harris. It just, the list goes on and on. The list is long. It's probably 50 different brands of consoles. But at the time, some of these consoles, and these consoles can be really, really big. But they were expensive back in the day. Now you start seeing some of these really super expensive consoles, and they're like a tenth of what they used to cost. And I think the biggest thing is because most people just don't want to deal with consoles. Are heavy. They're extremely heavy, and can be maintenance because nightmares, because if a channel goes out, trying to get someone to fix the channel if you don't know how to do it yourself. and a lot of times doing a lot of soldering, a lot of wiring, and overall they're heavy. They're big, they're heavy. So let me read a few comments. Aldia says that Allen Heath looks cool, though. I'll appreciate it. This is the 3800 Allen Heath. I really want a 4800, 4000, or 5000, the ML, because it has a little bit more EQ control. Other than that's what I love about, the sound quality is good, but I wish it had a little bit more EQ on it, other than having a fixed high and a fixed low. The only thing that's really sweepable is the mid high and mid low. Other than that, that's the only downside to this console. So let me see. I got a few more comments. George G said, I love working behind the console. I do too. I love working behind the board. That's just me. Not everyone wants to work. Some people love the workflow, like their workflow. Some people love their workflow where it's just a keyboard, mouse, maybe a controller. Sometimes people don't even have a controller. Sometimes it's just keyboard and mouse. I can work the other way. I've worked that way. But I prefer console. Georgie says, I have MCI boards. Gotcha. George says, if I had the money and space, I would buy an SSL 456G. That's for sale. Near me for 50. Right. I hear you. SSL's great console. I hear you. And believe it or not, for 50 G's, sometimes people can actually take out loans or whatever and make payments. If that's an option, and it just depends. Now, Warhart says my console's inline. Yeah, this one is split, but my other console that MX 8000 downstairs is an inline console. 4004G were million back. Yeah, they were. They were super expensive. But you think I was watching a channel, and he does a lot of stories, tells a lot of stories of his experience in pro audio, and it does make you wonder. What he was explaining is how people were obtaining large format consoles like that. And what he was saying is a lot of times they were getting from leasing companies, and they were actually leased the board with the option to buy it after so much time. Like a car, you can lease a car with the option to buy it after so many years. And, but you think about it at that time, people would, there was so many clients. It didn't take long. Even if you were a brand new studio, as long as you had the gear that producers and artists were looking for, they would take a chance. And once they got in their recordings, and if whether they have their own studio engineer or you have an in-house engineer, whatever, and the recording came out well, once you recorded a major artist, it wouldn't be very hard for you to start getting more major artists in there. It would just go, like that. So it wouldn't take long for them to be able to make their money back on spending that kind of money for that kind of console, because they were building clients. Because at that time, everybody was going to commercial studios. That was the normal thing to do. So commercial studios were stayed booked, because you're talking before the 2000s, before the whole Napster. That was the time where everyone would get signed to a record label, and they would get advances that could pay for the studio time. So that was a common thing. That ain't the case really too much now. Pretty much people are doing DAWs with interfaces, plugins, and stuff like that. So consoles have become an option, when it was kind of a necessity back in the day. I don't mean to sound slurping in the microphone, but I got to drink my Mountain Dew. So let me see. You got some more comments. Which I said, I want an in-law console, but I don't know how to hook it up to a computer. Okay. It's actually fairly easy, right? With the in-law console, hooking it up. Because really everything, if you got a lot of outboard gear in your console, believe it or not, this is the one thing about hooking up studios is you got to remember everything that you would have in your recording studio, all gear, including the console, is going to be routed to a patch bay. You know, so you're going to have the patch bay set up. So typically, how most recording studios do it is they'll route their studio like this. They'll get rows of patch bays. The first row of patch bay typically would have inputs coming from a live room. So if you have your live room, wherever, whatever, so a lot of times you would have lines coming to the live room. So they would have panels. So if you got, let's say 1, 2, or 3, let's say you have a vocal booth, you would have a drum booth, and maybe a big old open room booth, big open room where majority of most people would be. They're going to be panels, and you're going to number them like anything else. Panel on the wall, you might have 16 inputs or 32 inputs. So you're going to have 1 through 32, maybe another 8 in one booth, another 8. So now we got up to 48 inputs coming to a 48 channel patch bay on the first row from the app. So that will come in. And a lot of times when patch bay is always outs on the top, ins on the bottom, right? So you're going to have that out, and then you're going to have the input, which is going to be the bottom part of that same patch bay. That will go into your console. So that's how you would hook that up. So you would select your channels from your inputs of your patch bay. The top row of your patch bay would come from your live room. The bottom part of that same row of patch bay would then go into the inputs of your patch bay. Now, if you're running mic lines into your patch bay, you want to do it in the mic side, because that's where you're going to normally hook up microphones. Whatever microphones you're going to from your live room, that's going to go into your mic line, is going to the console. Then there's also the console have line inputs that will go into the line input. So that way you're going to run, let's say you're going to run direct instruments or whatever, because the console is doing more than just, it's also monitoring everything to the live rooms. You're listening to everything live through the console, and then the direct outs or the bus outs would then go to a tape machine. But instead of going to a bus, which would also be routed to a patch bay, then to the tape machine. That's how you would hook that up. So you're going to choose your bus outs from your console or your direct outs. Like me, I run direct outs from my console into my interface. My interface can do up to 32 inputs. I don't record 32 channels at a time. I only usually record up to 8, maybe 8. So the other 24 is not really being used, but you have that option. And that's how you would do it. And that's how you would route. Same thing. It's the same concept with your digital mixers. A lot of times people use digital mixers. They already have built-in, they have DAW controllers like PreSonus Live or Behringer X32 or Yamaha TF whatever, or the Allen Heath Q32 or whatever, Q16 or whatever, Midas 32. They all have DAW controls through USB connections, but that's how you hook that console. It's the same way where they're using an Allen Heath like I got, or an SSL. The difference is consoles like this Allen and Heath, they have 1/4 inch and XLR inputs. And most of those bigger consoles have what they call DB25 connections. A lot of times they have, or they have the other type of connection that will then connect to the back, and it will also still go to a patch bay. Sometimes the patch bay is built on the end of the console. Sometimes it's separated and somewhere in the room. That's the general idea of how you would hook that up. Of course, you definitely want to run your grounding system too, because ground noise from other sources will get into the sound. But that, if you were, kind of curious of that. So, let's see, going back, Dio said, I messed up and bought a live music console instead of a recording console. Maybe I can use it to sing. I got you. Schematic said, I never ever thought about buying a console. I would need not only the space, but also another engineer to run it for me. Yeah, believe it or not, there are artists and producers, whatever, that hire engineers to They just buy the gear, and they have their own engineer to do everything. So you'd be amazed. Welcome. Let me see. GRNS, is that Gurns Cheese? Chess. Anyhow, welcome. If I don't mean to butcher your name. I just don't know how to pronounce it. Uh, okay. So hi, Mark. I love the content. I will only purchase a Rupert Neve design 5088 today because it was made to be modular. You can start. Yeah, right. Which is I think 5088s are still pretty. They're still 100K, I believe. So which is, like anyone that have the money or the option to spend that kind of money, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the choices that people decide to buy for a console. Some of these consoles are still pricey. Like to me, I just wouldn't spend um 150K on a SSL Oracle. I think they're just extorting their name because it's SSL. There's no way in the world I would no you there. I would tell people to buy the SS Origin first over the SSL Oracle and get a DAW controller. That's what I would tell people to do. You still could. I think the SS Origin is still 50 grand versus 150 grand. At least with the SS Origin, you get 32 channels. It's technically 64 because you got 64, 32 and then another 32 for monitoring. But anyhow, that's just me. Welcome, Andre. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Going back to George says these boards require maintenance. If you don't know the right person to work on them, it's not worth it. Bad enough you need to call for the power. Yeah, they definitely the old school ones. Because they were 220, they definitely took up a lot of. They definitely get hot with the power supplies, but a lot of these companies are modifying even those old school analog consoles to actually be more modern spec where you can actually run it off 110 voltage. And you can shut the console down because most of those consoles back in the day, you never shut them down. They run just like your refrigerator. They stay running. That's the one thing you never turn off is your refrigerator, right? Well, that was the same thing with those consoles. You just never powered them down. There was also a thing I saw. I can remember they were asking, should you turn your gear off? Or should you leave it on? Like anything else, most gear is better when it's left running. But if you leave your gear on all the time, your electricity bill is going to skyrocket. Like for me, most of the gear up here is turned off a lot. Downstairs, it stays on more, but I don't have as much gear downstairs like I do up here. So let me see what else. Oh, you got to have a patch bay. Let me see. Need an interface like with a lot of input and output I/O. Hey, Rockport Tiger or Tigger. Welcome. I'm still trying to figure out how to see Gurns Chess. Is it Gurns Chess? We have newer tech now. You can use the Ethernet audio interface, which can give you 12 dB of input output at 190. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I would say, especially on interfaces, most interfaces, especially now they're making interfaces like I have the Antelope Orion and the Mark of the Unicorn and stuff like that. You got your Dante, your Maddie, and if your computer can definitely handle the processing, 192K versus typical 44. But a lot of times I still record at 44.1. A lot of times maybe 48. I don't really do a high sampling rate because you just sometimes they say for YouTube or whatever they require to at least record at 48K for certain, but I still record at 44.1 for a lot of stuff. So anyhow, let's see. Okay, so let me see. I missed a few things. Oh yeah, George said grounding is very important, right? There is one of the biggest things that's never talked about, and I didn't know this either for a while, about grounding as a crucial part, until I met a really good friend of mine. Of course, met him through the YouTube, and then we started interacting. And he started talking about the ground system and all that. And I'm like, because every studio I've been in, they've already been wired up. So all the wiring that's going, whether it's power, you know, all the connections and everything was already in there. So you couldn't see it. You just would see the console, you would see the outboard gear, the speakers were in the wall, the near fears and all that. And that stuff, it was so neatly, you didn't see none of that. So I never thought about any of that because every studio I've been, they look, So anyhow, if you ever get a chance to see maybe a video on them, tearing down or studio where they were moving the console, whatever, and you'll be amazed how much wiring was, in the floor, in the walls, or whatever. And but they have what they call a star ground system. It's a huge grounding system, and it's crucial, but it's never talked about. But it's kind of like, because when you start running a lot of gear, you're definitely going to be subject to ground loops and hums. So trying to defeat ground loops and hums can be a process without a proper ground system. So let me see, got more comments coming in. Let's see. Oh, guessing Chis, I got a quote for a base model 5088 and it was 10K. It's a lot, but compared to everything else, it's a bargain. You found a Neve 5088 for only 10K? Oh, if you got the money, I would snatch that, because I've never seen Neve 5080 under 100K. I've always, and I look, when I'm looking at these consoles, especially large format consoles like that, I'm on Vintage King and all these other places, Reverb, and a lot of places, Pro Sound Audio, and I've never seen a 5080 under 100K. So if you can get it for 10K, yes. Ward says, the Mix Club, welcome. You said my studio is on maybe 2% of the time. Yeah, I wish I had the studio up here. I'm so overwhelmed with so much other stuff I got going. I don't have the time to actually be up here in this studio as much as I want to. But I'm going to start doing some more recording here in the fall, so I'll be up here more. And then Manny, let me see. Oh yeah, George said, yeah, you would see difference in your, for sure. Like anything else, because that meter is moving when you got so much stuff on. That's anything. If you're running, like my home has 2 HVAC systems. So yeah. So Maddie says console's is just a step too far for my personality. I would have used one, but the bitch still here at the, yeah, and you gotta remember at the time, like when I started in the 90s, the console was necessary. It's not necessary now, because people, back then you're still recording the tape, or at least a hard disk recorder. You were still recording to tape or a hard disk recorder. So console, if you really think about it, a console technically it's a channel of mic pre's with EQs. And if you're lucky, for some consoles like an SSL, it's a mic pre with EQs and dynamics, like a channel strip, right? So they got the term channel strip, like a channel on a console, but instead of being a console, they just call it a strip of a channel from a console. But just, instead of calling it that, they just call it a channel strip. And so your typical preamps, like my Avalon over there, or my Joe Meek or whatever, or some of the other their mic pre they have the mic pre section and the EQ section. Except with a console, you have more options because you have a bunch of channel strips with auxiliaries, which means you can give you an alternative route to route the signal to a different part of the console, as well as a bus group, which allows you to group a bunch of channels together. So it's like you're coming into one with the groups / buses from multiple sources, and auxiliaries, you're sending that channel out to multiple sources. It's kind of like guys are like outs, the bus groups are like ins, right? So it gives you that option that mic pre's whatever. But a lot of people choose not to have a console because they say, well, I'm only going to record 1, 2. So all I need is a couple of channel strips. I don't need a large console for the mic pre's or the EQs because I have a channel strip. I'm only recording a couple of things. So it's kind of like, well, if I have a couple of mic pre's channel strips, that's your console sound, right? It's the same thing, right? So but there's a lot more to it than that, just when you're running through a console. But that's the basis of it. So Man Network says, I sold my 58. Man Network is the only person I know on here he's got 25 recording studios. He's got 13 SSLs, 25 Neve vintage. Man's the only person I know that's competing with Blackbird. I'm picking on Man Network because Man has everything. But he said he just sold his 5088 for $150K. Okay. All right. Cool. The Mix Club, I was broke and need money. I hear you. Man says laughing. I said, I don't have any SSLs. Yeah, you do. No, I'm picking on. Welcome, John. John says, I'm still enjoying my SSL 6 Acoustica and XS. I don't know. They got the job. Okay. Which is cool. He said the best deal out there is the Triton 68, 10K, and you still get a $60,000, right? Triton is one of those brand in consoles that they're amazing sounding. They have really good sounding EQs, but because you always hear Neve, SSL, and API. Every now and then you hear Triton. It's kind of like every now and then you'll hear maybe Helios, or you'll hear Caddic or Neotech, which are good sounding consoles. Maybe a Soundtracks or something like that. But because we always hear the big threes, like always hearing like with car brands like Ford, GM, and Chrysler, right? But there's tons of other brands, Toyota, Mitsubishi, y'all know what I'm talking about. You got German brand, Audi, BMW, and so forth. So consoles are the same way. Let me see. Seven Sun says, I don't have a large format console, but I recently purchased the SSL Big 6. First, I purchased the Tascam 16, but it was my fiending the SSL and made the jump. Now I see why they cost more. Like I said, I've made a video on SSL, and a lot of people probably misconstrued that video about SSL, especially the Big 6. I always said this: I've never had a problem with SSL products. I had a price with them trying to give you bare minimum and want to charge you premium prices, versus, for example, the SSL Big 6 at one time was like $3,000. And I was thinking you get 12 channels, a fixed 3-band EQ. You only get three, 4 mic pre's. That's it. And that was pretty much the heart of, other than you can hook up a USB. Like for $3,000, I can get a minus 32 digital console with 32 inputs and outputs, and just a ton of, whatever a ton of onboard DSP processing with the plugins that come in the Midas and with everything else for about the same price. The same thing with a Personas Live or whatever. I just didn't see. You couldn't justify the cost for me. But I never talk about SSL sound quality because I think SSL sound quality is good. It was the pricing, and I noticed that SSL will come out a product like an SSL XL desk. You hear about it for a minute and then it disappear. Because I think the SSL desk was running about 20 grand, and you could put your own 500 series in there, which to me, that was kind of more worth it than the Neve. The Neve tried that same thing with their 88, 84, 40, or 84, or I think it was 48, 84, whatever it was, where they only give you 2 mic pre's, no EQs, and nothing else. And it was like 25, 30 grand. I'm like, no, you can't not to get nothing for that kind of money. When I can 30 grand, I can go find me I've seen a vintage Neve VR 48 channel console for 25 grand. I'm going to spend 30 grand for that. No, I'm get the Neve VR. I know it's heavy, but if I'm going to spend that kind of money, that was just me. Not everyone feels the same way. And I'm like, well, guess don't get me wrong. I'm not looking to purchase a console anytime soon. Me either. It's not that I'm not. It's just like like anything else. It's more for me. You got to have the finances to buy one, right? That's just me. Like to have 50 grand to buy on a console. Well, I don't have 50 grand to spend on a console right now. You best believe if I did, I would, but no, I don't. So, Matthew said, instead of buying a console, I could come and record with you at Man Network, right? Especially Man Network, and then we're going to offer, I don't know what Man charges for his rates. Agolf Twitler. That name still Agolf, Agolf Twitler. People are mounting those preamp channels in racks mount from making a nice profit parting out these consoles. Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of times, sometimes they did. Like I was watching this thing on the Focusrite console, which is a Rupert Neve design because he used to own Focusrite or he used to work with Focusrite, one of the two. And he designed the Focusrite console. They only made 10 of them. It's one of the most amazing looking consoles I've ever seen of all consoles ever made. Is that Focusrite console. United Way / Ocean Way used to own one. But he sold it to whoever, Ocean Way or whatever. He sold it it became United Way or whatever. And I think they finally closed after that. He had one of those Focusrite consoles in there. And Jack Pewitt was his sound engineer. They used to run it. And one of the consoles, I think 3 of them went to Japan, and one of those studios had 2 of them. They chopped one of them up, and I was like, why would you chop a console like that when why would you do that? But anyhow, I guess it's no different than when the movies buy $100,000 cars and decide to crash them just for a movie. $100,000 car, and they crash them like a Porsche for a movie. That's just people that have money that shouldn't have money. But that's just me. You could have gave me one of the Porsche instead of crashing it in a movie. But that's just me. The Mix Club said I had an AMEC Big in 1998, sold it in 2000. Okay, Mix. Thanks for watching. He said he got to get up early. Yeah, I did start late. Like I said, I'm not gonna be on here very long because I did start late, but I got a ton of other stuff going on. But I did want to do a little bit of live stream. I just want to talk about consoles because consoles it's starting to become more and more of a forgotten centerpiece of a studio is the console. I still like consoles. That's just me. I like consoles. So I'm like this. If someone's got a Neve VR 48 and they want to sell it to me for $5 grand, hey, because you don't want to have a big console like that, hey, let me know. But anyhow, oh yeah, Rockport Ticker says I have an SSL UC1 and a UF and an Novation XLJ channels more than 90. Yeah, and like I said, I was talking earlier in the video. Sometimes that's all people want to do. They want to have a controller, and they're going to work in the box, and they're going to use the plugins and the mixer and the software, which is a lot of people work that way. There's nothing wrong with working that way. I like this workflow for me, but workflow is workflow. The object is the end. We all know that in the end, what's important is the end result. Doesn't matter how you use it, which is probably what I'm going to talk about next week. Instead of consoles, I'm probably going to talk about preamps, maybe even studio monitors next week. We might talk about microphones the week after that or something like that. Guest and Chess, I have the Focusrite ISA 110. I'm never selling. Yeah, like I said, that's basically that ISA 110 is generally the same mic pre that came in that Focusrite console. You're getting the same console preamp sound. And Jack Pure said when he was working with that Focusrite console, he said he couldn't beat the sound. The mic pre's in that Focusrite. He said it was some of the best he's ever heard. Once again, who designed them for ISA 110? Rupert Neve. So no wonder the 110 sounds amazing. It's just what it is. Let me see. That's like Corvette money. Well, let me see. Agar Twitter said, when you work in the studio, you take apart your console all the time for cleaning and maintenance. So it's not taking. Okay, it must be something someone said earlier. I must have missed something. Oh yeah, the Midas. John says the Midas Venice. Yeah, see, a lot of times people type so many comments. I missed some stuff. I missed quite a bit. Can you imagine being on Rick Beato's channel? Rick's got over 3-4 million subscribers, and whenever he goes live, his comments be shooting by like. I'm like, I don't understand how they can even keep up. It'd be 100,000 people when they're trying to write comments. I'm like, Rick is not gonna have time to see those comments at all. I'm barely catching up now, and I only have like 20-30 people watching. And I'm barely keeping up with these comments. So let me see. Yeah, Andre said there was a documentary Focusrite mix. Yeah, that's the documentary I'm talking about. That is the exact documentary comment. That is one of the best looking consoles. In my opinion, that is one of the best looking consoles ever made. And it's a shame they only made 10. I think one got destroyed in a flood when they had Hurricane Sandy came through because it was in New Jersey, and they got destroyed. And another one, like I said, they chopped it up and so forth. But that would be a dream to have a console like that. There was a guy in Spain that had a Focusrite in his bedroom in Spain. I'm like, you're talking about being cramped, because I know that console is heavy. I know it's heavy, it's big. I know it's huge. But and the Magic said, yeah, Jack Pure did some amazing did some of my favorite records on that board. I believe it. Yeah. When it comes to those consoles like that Focusrite or SSLs or Neves or APIs and Tascams and MCIs and all that, they all sound good. They all got a little bit of their own flavor, but they all generally sound good. They all do. So said Wizard Pinkerton was done on that one, I think. Oh, okay. I would not know. But I can believe it. Quablo said, I'll buy an API board. Yeah, that's API is, we already know API is a top brand board too. It's one of the big three. API, whether it's a 1608 or whatever the case, we already know. Just like with the Neve, especially the vintage Neves, like an 8038 or 8048, whatever. Just like with the or the more modern, like the Neve VR, with the famous flying faders and all, or an SSL 4000 or 6000 or even a 9000, or even a duality. So, but some people have the newer SSLs like the SSL AWS 900 or whatever. So there's a ton of options. So Matthew said $90K just for the desk. Yep. Oh man, says Rick doesn't answer 1% of his comments. Rick does. That's the one thing. I think that's the downside to Rick Beato, because Rick, he's very opinionated. I don't have nothing. Everyone has their opinions, but sometimes when you're going to have that, your viewers want you to at least be there, interact with them, and you start seeing their comments. They want to know that you at least acknowledge that they're there. To me, like I see when people are clicking in, I can see your comments. I try to comment on most of them as much as I can to let you know that I recognize you. I see, and like I said, for the most part, I may not agree with 100% of everybody, but 99% of everyone, I think we all have a common ground. Sometimes there's some disagreements, but that's just, that's the nature. But oh yeah, okay, let's see. Let me see. I got a few more. Agol says I still love my Soundcraft Ghost. Oh yeah, that's another one. I got a friend. He swears by the Soundcraft Ghost. That's what he has in the studio. He swears by it. I think Ghost for the Capital Console is the Soundcraft Ghost, and it's kind of like on the same level like with this Allen and Heath. They're mid-level. They're not large. They're not the large format gigantic SSL or Neve consoles. They're mid-level, which is the mid-level. So Soundcraft Ghost, and like this Allen Heath are in that range. Let's see. Oh, he said HHB Radius made it. Yeah, you don't hear much about those. I've heard about those. You just don't hear a lot about them. So, and well, yes, a limited routing, but great Soundcraft. Yes, yeah. That's like with any mid-level board, you're going to start limiting. They're just going to, I'm talking about someone that said Rick Beato's chat flies like CNN. Just I've seen what he tried to do live, and you'll never have time to read those comments. But like this one, like this one has, you have your mic pre section, you have a fixed filter section, which is just a high pass filter section. Like an SSL console is going to have, and not only will it have a high and a low pass filter, but you can make adjustments to the high pass and low pass filter. That's definitely, the difference between entry versus semi-pro. Like this would be considered, because this is technically a live board for live sound, but the difference between semi-pro and pro is that you really, it's like anything else, photography or anything else. The more options, photographer or professionals, they have a ton of options to make a lot of different choices based on the situation. Versus entry stuff, you don't have a lot of options. You can only go with what you got. That's how you know something's entry level. So that's the only downside to mid level. That's why I said this is a great board. This Allen Heath is a great board, but for what I do, I would definitely love to have a more intuitive recording console. You just need more options. So that's why I'm always in the market of upgrading, especially my console. Let me see. What else did I miss? Anything else? Worse, says I'm concerned about having a recap of 48 input count. Let me tell you, and here's the thing when it comes to recapping or anything else, it's just one of those things that if you're going to be down for 3-4 months, that's the time to start cleaning and prepping not only your console, but also your outboard gear. That's where you're putting your outboard gear off the rack and you're cleaning also the contacts and the circuits and all that, because dust and everything gets in that as well as, excuse me, making sure the cable connections are good and things like that. But it's maintenance time, especially if you have downtime. It's maintenance time. And this is something that you're doing every day. You're cleaning your channels every day. I'm gonna do, like, you don't do all 48 in the same day. You might do 1 through 8 today. Then you come back and do 9 through 16 the next day. Then 25 through or 17 through 24 the next day. Then 25 to 32 the next day. That's just one of those things. And then finally, maybe maybe one up to, up to 33 up to 40 or whatever, depending on how many channels you got. But you're not doing that every day. And then you're gonna, not just clean the channels, but you're constantly, you're putting out the faders and you're cleaning that as well. Then after that, you're just going back, you're double checking cables, make sure cables aren't, broken cables where you're not getting the right signal. That's all you're doing. So, so you need interns to slave over your income. I would never, I would never have interns. I don't have the conscience to try to get people to do stuff for free. If they're giving up their time, even as an intern, if they're giving up their time, they should get paid something. But some people, there's been a lot of people that abuse that. Oh, you're an intern, you don't know nothing, so hey, go get me a cup of coffee. No, pay that guy for making you some cup of coffee. That's just me. Maybe I'm, because everybody wants to have the same advantage of learning this business. People wouldn't take the time to go to school, whatever, and you're just like, whatever. It's bad enough that the school ripped them off for the school ripped them off for their tuition. Because I think I already think a lot of schools, I think it's awesome to learn anything from school. Trust me, I got a lot of courses I took it from school, but I don't believe in, they taking advantage of that. They know half them students are not going to be able to get a job as an engineer. They know this, but I'm going to charge you $100K. Anyhow, let me see. Oh, Gulf says, yeah, he's talking about the sound. Yeah, like I said, I got a friend that swears by it. Okay, let me see what else. We got some more. All right, so Activate said audio. He's got Rockport Audient, an Audient ASP 8024, which is a great console, 24-track recording console with DLC and the patch bay, exterior top, exterior arms, 34K, which is actually a really good deal for an Audient. Those are good sounding consoles. I've heard them. Those are really good sounding consoles. And then Andre say, at the end of the day, console is a tool. Your end result is more important. That's all it really is. It's a tool. And it's kind of like me. That's the kind of tool I prefer to work on. I don't have to have a console. I got 3 setups. One setup I just don't have a console at all. I can just use the mouse and work on the console in the DAW. But I prefer to work on a console. That's just me. Let me see. I go said, bless the intern. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of studios that there's been a lot of guys that start off interns. They end up, at one point they become the chief engineer. Well, some people start off as interns, but I'm not people. Some people say, well, they can actually become a paid staff once they improve they prove themselves. But it is what it is. But I just don't have it. I wouldn't have any interns. If you're gonna be in my studio, and you're working and we got clients that are paying, yeah, you can get paid. But some people say, well, we don't want to take the chance of having interns because we can't afford to fit them to make mistakes. Well, naturally, that's why you, as the chief engineer, you're doing the bulk of making sure things are going to go well, to get an excellent recording and all that. You're not gonna make sure that intern not gonna probably be at the desk turning knobs, but the intern, sure, that's why they usually have interns in it, whatever the case. If you direct the interns at what you want, hey, I need you to on 1176 put the attack at this speed, and I want to, and just my release at this and whatever, and then set the input gain or whatever, set it there. It's really not hard to mess that up. And I'm looking, or I want to make sure it's 4-1 or whatever, 8-1. If you're telling them that, then that's, it's not really that hard. And then Matthew says, but you'd be surprised. Let me jump to, I think Warren's talking about, it's a scam. We're talking about the schools. Let me tell you, I've took classes, but to actually attend, like 3 or 4 years at an actual audio engineering school, no. I just, I don't think it's necessary. But now, don't get me wrong, you can learn a lot of stuff going to school. I just don't, for what they charge, it ain't worth it. The knowledge is worth it, just but what they charge isn't. Spawn, welcome. So let me see. Worse is my workflow crashes on the mouse. Got you. Matthew says, yeah, you're pretty desperate after being an intern for 3 months, though. You've been made. Some people will be an intern for years. Because here's the thing, especially if you're an intern, at, let's say, I'll say East West, and guess who's recording at studios like East West? Top artists. So your chances, you may not necessarily get to 100% interact with that artist, but you will get to see that artist. I'm talking about big name artists. You will see them, and I'm like me, I have with the group that we did and the traveling and meeting artists and all that. I'm not a starstruck person because artists are human, are people like anyone else, just like a news anchor or anyone that's a celebrity. They're people like anyone else. They're just human beings to me. So I don't get starstruck. But you can be in East West and all of a sudden Janet Jackson got it booked there. And you're an intern. If you're an intern and work at that recording studio, at one given point, you're going to see Janet Jackson. It's just what it is, and if you're working in the studio, in the actual control room that she's in, you might get to sit in the control room with the engineers while she's, of course, in the live room, whatever. Because every now and then they're going to bring her into the control room to listen to stuff. But the thing is, what they don't want in control, what they don't want is in turn start bugging the artist. So a lot of times you got to be in there, you just back in the room, just being quiet and listening to the engineer interact with the artist, and the producers. Because sometimes there's quite a few people in that control room. But if you're working in a big name studio like that, you will see Mariah Carey, you will see Mary J. Blige, you will see Justin Timberlake, you will see Janet Jackson, you will see Pink, and Adele, and all these different artists. You will see them. So that's the advantage if you can be an intern. And the thing is, because sometimes, believe it or not, it's not easy to become an intern in a recording studio. And that's just being an intern. It's not like, well, if I can be an intern, unless you start talking about stuff, because the biggest thing, they want to know your credentials. Even if you are, all you're doing is just clean the bathrooms, and that just sounds so shady to me. You can be an intern. All I want you to do is make me coffee and go do food runs and sweep the latrine, the bath. I'm about to say latrine, from the army stuff. I just want you to clean the bathrooms, whatever. But the thing is, you may not necessarily see Mariah Carey, but Mariah Carey could be there. You may not necessarily see her, get to talk to her. You'll see her. Even if you are cleaning the bathrooms, at one point you will see, even if she happen to be walking down the hallway to go in, you will see her. So it would be impossible to work in a major studio and Mariah is recording there, and you're just an intern and not see Mariah Carey. That would be impossible. You're going to see her. But anyhow, so let me see a few more comments. Let me see what else. It said Matt, you said I never went to audio engineering school. Thing. Like I said, I took some class, but yeah, I never went to an audio engineering school as full time as me either. Because it's just I've learned. I started in the 90s doing this, and so I was kind of fortunate to. That's all I stayed in the studio 24 hours a day at one point. I was there all the time, so I got a lot of hands-on learning. But anyhow, see, John Mayer tracks a lot of East West. Yeah, you mean John Mayer. This the list is long when it comes to these studios. Not just East West in Atlanta. I mean East West in L.A., but also Patchwork in Atlanta. Just like the Hit Factory in Miami. Excuse me. Big name studios have big name artists. So if you intern in one of those big name studios, you're going to run into you're going to see artists. Even if they're independent artists or local artists, there's a possible that they might blow up. Here's another crazy thing. You can be an intern and they might need an engineer for an unknown local band, right? And you know how to work the gear. You've been there. You know how to work an SSL console, whatever. You know how to feed a tape machine, whatever. You know how to hook stuff up. You know how to set the gear on and all that. You might engineer, and let's say that that local artist blows up. Next they're playing at the Grammys, and you're the one that engineered their record. Guess what? You're no longer an intern. You're now going to be a paid engineer. It can happen like that. So it just depends. Oh yeah, Matt says, let's see. I just learned on the job. It was music for advertising, though, not recording art. Gotcha. Like anything else, Andre says, if you intern at a top studio, it's about time to learn what you can about recording and mixing. And then, yeah, it's like I said, because you're going to be around when you're in a big name studio, and I promise you, majority of them are going to have a large format console. It'd be crazy for someone to work. It's like no different than a person that's a mechanic working in a garage. And at one point, you're going to have to learn how to change the tires, do the brakes, do suspension parts, maybe AC, whatever case, flush the transmission or whatever. You're going to eventually learn. You're going to, you're going to start learning different tools and techniques as you watch and be around a mechanic, even if they're telling you, hey, I need you to come over here and help me with this. Same thing with, you can be an intern. Hey, go in there and hey, I need you to pull out that U67 microphone and put, whatever. It just would be impossible not to, unless you're just dead. And I mean, a lot of literally did it just like you can't absorb figuring out what to do. Yeah. But anyhow, let's see what else. That's money though. Commercial recording studios for license. That's dead now for AI. I don't know. There's still people that still, when we're talking humans, there are still a lot of humans that still go to studios. Now, recording studios are not, it's just not thousands of them like they used to be, but they're still there. There's still some up and running, especially in Nashville. Nashville still does live. They still do session musicians and so forth. They're just real musicians. Nashville refused to give that up. So you want some real work with real musicians and artists, definitely Nashville if you get into the Nashville scene. Now, what's going on with New York, Chicago, Detroit, Dallas, Miami, or whatever, LA, that might be a different story, or overseas in London or whatever, or Japan, but it's definitely live recording in Nashville. That music scene down there is live and well. Okay, let's see. At EW, everyone hand out on the top. That got you. Let me see. Let me see. So I must have. Yeah, you might see Mariah Carey during Christmas when she's thawed. I see. He said, "Oh, I do love her Christmas song though. All I want for Christmas is you." Uh, so so worse. So don't destroy Beyonce's master tape. Trust me, an engineer is not going to let an intern destroy that master tape because once half the time the master tape has already went back to Pro Tools or whatever on the hard, it's a file. So and oh yeah, so plus a lot of studios record voiceover and pod. Yeah, they do for TV and stuff. Yeah, record. It's not just for recording artists. They still do string orchestras for movies and so forth too. Not always music. Yeah, that's true. Um, Matthew says, true, the studio I work for have expanded like 5 times the size since I was there. They're in Toronto. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Um, and like I said, because you talk about up in Canada and different places like that, it's just, you know, and it varies. Once again, it varies. But so, like I said, this is going to be a short podcast tonight because I'm exhausted. And I'm going to try to get started sooner next week. If I do the live stream next week, I always say if because I can't always do these every Sunday. But if I do, I'm gonna try to get started early. I got a lot on my plate right now. But I love talking about this stuff. It's fun. It is fun. So anyhow, I always once again I love when that everyone tunes in. Everyone tunes in because uh, great interacting. Once again, like I said, I don't think Rick Beato and even if Warren Hill produced like a pro was do a live stream, he's got so many subscribers. I guarantee he would never get a chance to read any of those comments. They'd be flying by like but at least I get a chance to interact and respond to people's comments. So once again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And like I said, put some thought in that. Some people already made their mind. Nah, I don't need a console. They're too big, too much maintenance. I don't want to deal with one. Don't need one. Other people like me, yeah, we know they're maintenance headaches. They're big, they're heavy, but it's the sonic. It's just what we know and what we love. It's kind of like, do I want an electric hybrid or do I want an old school big block V8? I look at consoles like an analog console, like that old school 454 big block V8 with a stick. You got to know how to drive it. That's just me. Oh yeah, someone says I've been talking about to man, everyone wants to know the name of your studios. Everyone wants to know the name of your studio so they can book some time in there. We're all trying to make you some money, but we don't know the name of your recording studios, man. But anyhow, thanks for everyone tuning in. Man is he's a loyal follower. I like Man Network. Like everyone is Manitou Hats and DL and just pretty much that tune in. So everyone that tunes in, I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Agolf, Twitler, Warhard Arts, Spawn. We had George on here earlier. We got Rockport Tigger. You got Guest Chess. Just a lot of people that was tuning in. I'm trying to see everyone. John Israel was tuning in. Seven Some Music. I'm screwed up to some of the people. Scroll up. We got the Mix Club. A lot of people that was tuning in. If I forgot your name, charge it to my head, not my heart. If I missed some people, but I always like to thank everyone that tunes in every week. It's just like I said, this is a shorter podcast because I'm tired and my plate is full right now. So let me see. He emailed me Okay, I'm gonna check my email again because I checked my last time my email and I didn't see anything, but I'm gonna check it again. I definitely will check it again. Um, so, Jay Richardson said both analog console and digital work with analog tape coming. So, gotcha. Okay. Once again, Ego Twitler and oh yeah, appreciate it, Matthew. It's always great to hang. The console or not the console is the question, right? Shorty email, right? Yeah, that's it. Show Shorty 99 at hotmail.com. Yep, the Show Shorty, SHORTY 99 at hotmail.com. Yep, that's it. So, all righty. We'll see y'all next time. And we're probably going to talk about microphones next. I want to talk about microphones next week. So, other than that, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time.